Today I'm going to be building my first ever PC, but because I care more about aesthetic than performance, I'm going for the all-white build. Because I mean, look at them. You can't tell me that they aren't the best looking PCs out there. But the only problem is, I know nothing about building PCs. However, after a lot of research, a lot of help, and an empty wallet, I was ready to dive into this PC build. So I'm hoping my lessons and my mistakes help you if you're trying to build your very first PC. Now for the parts, I only cared for really two things: having enough performance for gaming and streaming, and if they match the all-white build I was going for. I'm going to leave a list of the parts down in the description for anybody who wants to match this build. First off, the motherboard, the backbone of any PC build. When it comes to clean aesthetics and sheer elegance, the NZXT N7 B550 takes the cake. When it comes to an all-white build, this motherboard perfectly complements the PC. Originally, I did purchase the Gigabyte B550M motherboard, but it just didn't fit the bill. I wasn't very happy that it wasn't all white, as the PC is supposed to be all white. Lucky for me, I did stumble on the N7 motherboard that I got. The first thing we'll be installing is the CPU. I went with the Ryzen 5 3rd gen processor. I wanted a mid-tier CPU so I can put more money into the GPU. Originally, the CPU came with a CPU cooling fan, but I put that aside because I bought a CPU cooling cooler. I'll talk more about that later. When handling the CPU, be very careful and only hold it by its edges because you do not want to damage the pins beneath. Next, you want to align the gold triangle on the CPU with the triangle on the motherboard. To install it, lift the latch to access the CPU socket. Do not push down at all. All you have to do is lower the latch and you're golden. Next off is the storage. With storage, you have a couple of options depending on the amount of storage you want, but I went with the 500 gigabyte Samsung 980. To install, you want to take off the hard drive cover, tilt the SSD to a slight angle, and push it into the slot. Screw the other end down, then you're sitting pretty. Alright, now for the RAM, I have the popular T-Force Delta RGB. I only went with the 16 gigs because my wallet was already yelling at me, but that gives me room to upgrade later. I'm going to want to install them in slot 2 and 4 so my PC can take advantage of dual channel RAM. At least that's what my friend told me. For the type of CPU cooler that we have, we need to take off both brackets and screw on these CPU specific screws, but we'll install the CPU cooler later. For now, we're going to open up the PC case, which was very confusing, but nevertheless, we're going to mount the motherboard. The case I went with was the Lee & Lee 011 Dynamic Mini White Edition. You want to make sure you line up the back AIO and screw it into place with the only 6 spots that are touching the PC case, ultimately securing the motherboard so it doesn't rattle or jostle around at all. Next up, the power supply. I went with the Lee & Lee SP750 watt, but before you buy your power supply, make sure you check what wattage your PC needs because that's very important. If you're unsure, you can check on PCPartPicker.com and it'll tell you if your power supply or any other PC part that you're thinking of buying are compatible. Now after you put all the necessary PSU cords in, you're going to want to wiggle the power supply on in and align it with the case and screw it in. If you want to know how to set up the PSU cables, I'd look up a tutorial on YouTube because oh my god, it's confusing. Now to add a little flair and even more pop of color, I went with the ever so popular Lee & Lee 8-pin and the Lee & Lee 24-pin Strimer V2 because like I said earlier on in the video, I care more about aesthetic than I do the money in my wallet. And for the best looking and staple piece of this piece, I went with the Kraken Z53 RGB with the LCD screen. But for this build, I won't be using NZXT fans because I want everything in this PC to look uniform. And to do that, I bought 3 packs of 3 of the Lee & Lee Uni fans. After I unboxed 1 pack of the Lee & Lee fans, I took 2 fans out and unwrapped them. Look at those fans. They just look so slick. Now you're going to need to connect them and screw them onto the Kraken Z53. But you need to be careful not to jostle the tubes around too much. Once that's done, you want to mount it to your case. Shout out to Lee & Lee for making this so much easier. The fans have an easier attachment system to put them all together. You can order these fans in single or triple version. I went with the triple version because it was more cost effective for the amount of fans I wanted. But be wary of that the single version doesn't have the head controller. If you're trying to attach more than 6 fans, you're going to need the controller. Once they're together, you're going to attach them to your PC. Now you want to attach the pump header to the CPU slot. For this motherboard, you're going to need to change out the bracket that's already attached to the other bracket that they give you in the box. Luckily, with this CPU cooler already came with the thermal paste, so all you have to do is apply some pressure and screw it in. Now you don't have the black side screwed in from earlier in the video. But make sure you have the pumps out of the way of the screws, otherwise you won't have enough room to put the screw in. I had some problems with that myself. Now we're on to our last box of fans with only a single fan left that we'll talk about later. You're going to repeat the process of connecting the fans like before and attach them to your case. Now we're only a couple parts away before this case starts looking slick. And here's that last fan we were just talking about. You're going to want to just attach that to the last place you can, the back. Secure it, and you're finally done with the fans, after you connect all of them, of course. Man, I have no idea how people with decked out PCs make their PCs look so clean and make it look like they have no cords, because damn, it has a lot that goes into it. Regardless, you have to connect them to the necessary spots on your motherboard, otherwise they won't work. But here comes my dog Linguini to help calm me down because he could see I was frustrated, and boy was he ferocious. Alright, now, after all that cuteness, the main part, the most important part, which is the GPU. I went with the Gigabyte GeForce RTX 3070. This is a little overkill for the PC I was going for, but hey, it's white and this is an all-white build. After I took it out of the wrapping, I fell in love. But before anything, you need to determine how big your GPU is, because that determines how many brackets you'll take off of your PC. After that, you'll line up your GPU with the first PCIe slot and not the second, and apply some pressure until you hear the click. Then to finish it all off, the cherry on top is you gotta attach the 8-pin and you're golden. Now all that is left to do is turn on your PC for the very first time.
What you think about when
What?
you're born into a fire? Let 'em burn it out. Sell 'em to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade